Hey, Jesus.
Hey, Kat, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Sure, no problem. What's up?
Well, I think I finally figured out what the problem with our relationship is.
Oh, I didn't know there was a problem.
Yeah, see, here's the thing. Like, I am afraid all the time.
Really?
All the time. Yeah, it's bad.
Well, like of what?
Well, like right now, I'm like, did I turn off the oven? Am I going to die in a fiery crash on the way home? Is someone else I love going to die in a fiery crash? Are my kids going to fail at school?
Okay.
Are they going to get in a good...
No, I got it. Yeah, you know what? I can help you with that if you want me to.
That'd be great. Do you have like a book or something?
Yeah, I got a book. But no. In this case, it would be like an exercise. Okay, not an exercise. It would be a practice. Practice. Okay, so you can do this type of practice thing.
Okay.
I mean, you do trust me, right?
Well, no, like, I'm afraid to trust you. It's like the whole thing. Fear, trust.
Wow.
It's not good.
Okay. That's all right. This is going to get both of them. We're going to take care of it. Okay.
Okay.
So you stay right there. Stay right there. There we go. Okay, now, I'm over here. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Kathleen.
Jesus.
That's good. Okay, yeah. Do you trust me?
I remember like 2 seconds ago, and I was like, I'm afraid. I don't trust you. I'm afraid to trust you.
I know, I understand that. But this is practice. And so when I say, Kathleen, do you trust me? You say, yes, Jesus, I trust you.
Even if I don't?
Even if you don't, yes. Just
Okay.
turn around. Okay, here we go. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Kathleen, do you trust me?
Yes, Jesus, I trust you.
All right. Okay, are you afraid?
Well, not right now. We're just like standing here
Yeah,
talking.
I know that, but you're going to be.
What do you mean I'm going to?
No, don't worry about it. Just stay right here. Everything's going to be all right. Okay, here we go now. All right, you just answered how you feel. Okay, Kathleen, do you trust me?
Yes, Jesus, I trust you.
Very good. Okay, here we go. Are you afraid?
Yes.
Okay, but that's okay. That's all right.
Okay.
All right, you ready? All right, breathe in. There we go. Let it out. Loosen your body up. Okay, here we go. Nice and easy.
Okay.
Fall back.
You mean like, woo, like fall back like that?
Yeah, like, woo! Yeah, just fall right back.
Okay. And then what?
And then what?
Yeah, and then what?
Then what is not your concern. You just go ahead and do it.
Good. It's because like it's the and then what that like I'm like concerned about.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I know that you are.
Okay.
But you just stay here and you worry about your part, and I'll take care of the rest of it. Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
From the top. Kathleen, do you trust me?
Yes, Jesus, I trust you.
All right. Are you afraid?
Terrified.
That's okay. That's okay. So go ahead. Fall back.
What if I put my arms out like this in case somebody wanted to catch me?
Yeah, sure. If that helps you, yeah, go ahead and put your arms out.
Okay, but does it help you?
It really doesn't matter either way. Okay? So if you want to put your arms out, you put your arms right on out.
Okay.
There. Oh, yeah, that's good. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Kathleen, do you trust me?
Yes, Jesus, I trust you.
Are you afraid?
Very much.
That's good. That's okay.
Okay.
Fall back.
Okay, I'm doing it this time.
Okay.
I'm just coming back.
Okay.
Be
Come
ready.
on back.
Woo! That was so good!
That was great. But this time, I want your feet to stay planted on the ground. I don't want you walking back, and I don't want you to turn around.
Okay, but I turned around for like 1 second. You were like really far away, so I was like, let me get a little closer, help you out.
Yeah, I don't need your help. See? Because I'm Jesus, right?
Yep.
Right. And you do trust me, right?
Yes, Jesus, I trust you.
There we go. Okay. All right. Kathleen, you gotta put your arms out. There we go. Do you trust me?
Yes, Jesus, I trust you.
Are you afraid?
Very much.
Fall back.
Okay, I am I'm coming back.
Okay.
It's happening. Okay,
All right.
This is crazy. Just please catch me, okay? Oh my gosh! That was so
You did it! That's how you're amazing. That's what?
I
What?
feel a little woozy, like I might throw up though.
Oh, no. Save that for later. No.
okay.
You're stepping up a notch. We're going to level 2. You did
Level
great.
2?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
No, yeah, you get right over here.
Okay.
Okay?
Woo.
No.
What are you doing? You are way too close, Jesus.
No.
That is not even a challenge.
No. Hold on. No. Kat,
What?
wait. I want you to turn around this time. Okay?
Oh, okay. That seems easier, but
You have to stop doing that.
okay.
Okay?
Got it.
Stay right here
Okay.
and wait for my signal.
Ooh, the Jesus signal.
That's good.
Got it.
Jesus. Okay, yeah. All right.
Okay.
Kathleen, do you trust me?
Yes, Jesus, I trust you so much.
Are you afraid?
Not at all.
There we go.
Perfect.
Okay, arms out.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Fall back.
You are so
I
funny.
know, but it's even better here when you actually do it.
Wait, are you serious?
Yes, I'm serious.
Okay, but then what are you going to do? Are you going to run really fast behind me and catch me at the last second? Or are you going to be like, poof,
Yeah, but-
there's a bed?
Kat, that's not your concern. You just do what I just told you to do, and like last time, I'll take care
Okay,
of it.
but you can see that there's nobody back here.
Yeah, I know it seems like
Seems
that.
like you see nobody back here.
Kat, you have to let your faith overcome your fears.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, I know. I said it.
Shh. When I came out here, I was afraid.
Yeah.
And I didn't trust you.
Right.
But
you
now,
do.
I am not afraid. And I
No,
trust
you're a little-
Shh. I know what I'm
Kat.
going to do. I am going to start a no fear
No.
ministry.
No, Kat, you still have fears.
I am the greatest at
you're
no
not-
fear.
You're not
It's gonna be
listening to me.
great.
Kat, you're not
Oh my
even,
gosh.
you're not listening to me. Kat, hey, Kat.
Well, thanks to Steve and Jen for making me a little more scared. So thank you guys very much for that. I am so glad to be here. My name's Jim Powell, as Kevin mentioned a little bit earlier, and I, for 7 years, was the worship arts pastor here at this campus, and so there are many of you out there that I know, and I've gotten a chance to say hi to you, and then there's a lot of you who have never seen me in your whole entire life. So I just want to say thanks for letting me have this opportunity to be here and share a little bit of my experience about fear this morning and how God's grace is bigger than it. Thanks, Kevin, for letting me be up here and share. And thanks, Tori, who did an awesome job leading worship. It's been a while since I got to experience that. And speaking of Tori, though, you know, I don't know if you know this, but she actually has 2 wedding anniversaries. Yesterday and then the day before were both her wedding anniversaries, and it's because, so I did her wedding, it was about 5 years ago, right in this building, in this room here, and it was on March the 29th. And we did the wedding, it was a wonderful time, and then I filled out the wedding license, and I put March the 30th on there, because I wasn't thinking, and so mailed it in and the whole deal. So she now has a real wedding day, and then a technical wedding day, and if you know Tori at all, you'll know this is great for her because she loves celebrating stuff. And so you're welcome, Tori, and her husband, Nick, wherever you are, I apologize for that. But fear, it is a part of everyone's life, isn't it? You know, the thing, though, is that one of the biggest tricks that fear pulls on us is leading us to believe that we are the only ones who experience it. You know, you go on Google and you type in the search engine fear, and you'll find that that's simply not true. So many people are engaged with fear in their life, and there's so many quotes about fear. There's quotes all the way from, Mark Twain to Winston Churchill to William Wallace to Bilbo Baggins. My favorite quote on fear is this one. You might know it. It starts like this: "The only thing we have to fear is..." Fear itself. Yeah, from FDR. There's a lot about fear out there because so many of us, no, all of us, fear in our lives. Here's what I hope to accomplish this morning, that we're able to answer these two questions together. One, what does fear look like in your life? And number two, is that fear going to mark the end of the line for a goal or a dream that you have? Or could it mark the beginning of a greater journey? In order to look closer at that, we want to turn to Mark chapter 4. If you have your Bibles, you can open them up. It'll be on the screen too, or if you have your device, you can turn that on. We're in Mark chapter 4, verses 35 to 41. And the Gospel of Mark is a great gospel, 16 chapters. And more than likely, Mark got all of his information from the Apostle Peter, who was right smack in the boat with Jesus and the disciples at this point. And so the Gospel of Mark is a collection of a lot of things that Jesus did in his life. And they give us examples of what to learn and how to live. And this one in Mark 4, to me, is probably the most incredible account where there is an incredible teaching on how to deal with fear. And so that's why we're going to look at it together this morning. Let's read it. Mark 4:35. That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with them. But then a furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat. It was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, he rebuked the wind and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" Well, they were terrified, and they asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." Did you feel the raw emotion in that passage? Did you feel the moment there when all that hope kind of got sucked out of the boat? When all the fears started to go in? I felt it. And I got to tell you, I could relate to it. Because I feel like I've walked in these disciples' sandals before. 22 years ago, for the first time in my life, I stood up in front of a group of people to give what was supposed to be a simple 15-minute talk. No big deal, right? I was absolutely petrified. I don't think anything could have been more scary at that moment than public speaking for the first time. And then I figured out a little bit later, 2 weeks later, that there was something more scary than public speaking for the first time, and that was public speaking for the second time. Because you get this added little opportunity to think about this fear for days leading up to the second time you're going to be able to speak. After about 3 months of this, I had to come to terms with this truth that I had a paralyzing fear of speaking in front of people. And for me, this fear was particularly problematic because it was a potentially life-altering problem. You see, I could have just ditched the whole idea and gone and done something much less scary with my life, but I felt like God was directing my life into ministry where I was going to have multiple and regular opportunities to speak in front of people, yet I was absolutely petrified every time I would get up. It got so bad, in fact, that I wouldn't be able to eat anything on the days that I knew that I had to get up in front of people to speak. Honestly, the room would start spinning an hour before I would get up. It was absolutely miserable. But the only option that I felt like I had was to just plow through it, to suck it up a little bit. Well, 4 years of plowing, and for the first time, speaking in front of people started to get a little easier. I was getting a little bit more comfortable speaking on stage in most situations. And I thought to myself, well, good. The lesson here is that when you have a fear, you just have to confront it, and you plow through it, and you suck it up until you finally kind of get over it. Until 3 years in, I'm giving one of my regular Sunday morning messages to the students. And out of nowhere, this fear grabs me. It came out like a squall on the Sea of Galilee and absolutely seized me. I don't know where it came from or why, but it was reminiscent of the fear that I had had years before that I had thought I had gotten rid of. I didn't know what to do. I kind of stumbled over my words. Everything was starting to spin. I got sweaty. And then the only thing I knew how to do was grope for this stool I was hoping was nearby. And I sat down and I took a long, hard, painful breath. Because I had a really real decision to make that day. Because clearly fear was not something that could simply be plowed through or just gotten used to. I needed to decide in my life whether this fear marked the end of the line or just the beginning of a greater journey that God would have for me. So I want to ask you, what is it that you fear? You know, Kat and Jesus were up here, and maybe when they were kind of going through their dialogue back and forth, you related a little bit. Maybe there were some things that popped into your mind about what you feared in your life. Maybe it's the fear of failure. That's a huge one for us. Maybe it's a fear of being injured, pain, disapproval, rejection, financial insecurity, speaking in front of crowds. Maybe your fear is death, change, taking chances, taking risks, fear of the unknown, judgment, not measuring up. The list could go on. You know this. You have these in your life. We said it already, but it's worth repeating. One of fear's greatest lies is making you believe that you're the only one that experiences it. But it's just not true. The truth is that if you are a regular person, you live with fear somewhere in your life. And you know what? There's good news, though, because God is aware of that. That doesn't surprise him, and he has a plan for that. And the plan is this, and it's just what we looked at in Mark chapter 4. It's this, is that when you are most afraid, Jesus naps. I mean, unless mine was wrong, was yours any different? I mean, he did that, right? Let's be honest for a second. Have you ever felt like Jesus was taking a nap when you needed him the most? You wouldn't be alone. His own friends, his disciples, felt that way because he was taking a nap. But like so often is the case with Scripture, there's actually something much bigger happening behind the scenes in Mark chapter 4. And Jesus is very intentionally showing his disciples and us how to deal with fear in 3 ways. And we're going to cover these over our next few minutes together. Number 1, Jesus demonstrates how to change the question. Number 2, how to embrace the storm. And number 3, to remember to always make sure you're leaving the shore with the captain in your boat. Number 1, change the question. So while Jesus was napping, the disciples fell for the oldest trick in the book. And so do I, and maybe you do as well. They were allowing the scariest and the loudest thing to become the main thing. I could just imagine in this squall, that comes up, it's a big storm, the wind's blowing and the waves are crashing and splashing and the lightning is probably coming on and there's thunder and their lives were being threatened and they're intimidated by all of it. Because that was the scariest and loudest thing, and it was the most immediate problem that they had. And I know what you're thinking right now because I am thinking it too. Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. I mean, we've all watched those boat movies, right? When the storm comes and people are getting swept off the boat out to sea and the mast breaks and comes and crashes and knocks on somebody's head, or a pirate comes on and starts grabbing people. Okay, maybe not the pirate thing, but... So the disciples, they start to freak out a little bit about this increasingly tense situation on the boat. One of the dangerous effects of fear is that it can be extremely disorienting. When fear happens, there's a chemical center in our brain that starts releasing these chemicals that say, hey, be uncomfortable, be alarmed, be aware. And those are good things, but also they can be really, really confusing. And that confusion, married with being disoriented, can lead to something called self-doubt. I wonder if that's been true of you when you've encountered your fears. Whether your response has been, I'm scared of this, so I must not be really good at doing it. Maybe I need to go do something else. Maybe I'm not worthy enough for this person. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. Maybe I'm not pretty enough. I'm not as talented as he is. Fear is one of the chief contributors to self-doubt, which in turn is a chief contributor to quitting and giving up on some of the things that God has called you to. And so as we read, the disciples respond to this experience of fear, which holds a lot of emotion and a lot of desperation, with this question. They go over to him and they say, Teacher, don't you care if we drown? Have you asked that question of God in your life recently? This past year, maybe? This past week? Maybe some of you even asked it this morning. Sometime after I had the panic attack on stage that I described to you, I got really frustrated with God. And I remember one of my prayers to him being exactly this. God, don't you care if I drown? My fear of public speaking and losing the life that I felt like God was leading me to, that had become the scariest and loudest thing. And so it became the main thing that dominated my thought pattern. Because fear tells us you are going to drown. But Jesus says we're asking ourselves the wrong question. Two of the primary ways to learn from a teacher or a mentor, which is what Jesus was to them, is by asking questions. That's number one. You ask good questions. And they did that. Don't you care if we drown? Seemed reasonable enough. But not only asking questions, but imitating actions. Jim Cabral, who was a worship leader here for a long time, sometimes he comes around and plays here. He's over in Hampstead. After this talk last week, he came up to me and said, hey, Jim, I just got to share this with you. I'm terrified of flying. And so, but when we hit turbulence and I'm white-knuckling it on the armrest there, what I have learned to do is look over at the flight attendants who fly all the time. And if they're still out, serving cocktails to happy customers, then I know everything's okay. But if they're starting to panic and buckle up, I know the end is near. So Jesus is on the same exact boat. He's being pelted by the same exact waves. He's being blown by the same exact wind. He's just as human as the disciples, yet his reaction to the storm was completely different. The disciples were panicked, and he slept. How is that possible? He had changed the question. So Jesus wakes up from his nap because they woke him up, and he yawn, stretch a little bit, do a few trunk rotations, right? He turns to the wind and the waves and the storm, and he says, quiet, be still. And they obeyed. And he turns to the disciples. And he asks them a new question. And he says, why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? The first part of that question, I want to start with, why are you so afraid? You know, I think when we read this, we think that's just a rhetorical question or a general question, like, generally, what are you so afraid of? But I think Jesus is asking it very specifically, on purpose. He wants us to be able to name, what is it really in our lives that we're so afraid of? You know, I went to see a therapist about a week after this panic attack set in, and because I need to try to figure this thing out and get some answers. And so I sit down with him, and you never believe one of the first questions he asked me. No, this was the first question. He says, what are you so afraid of? And I said, well, if I could be honest with you, I'm a little bit afraid of like fainting on stage. And he says, well, what would be so bad about that? I was like, are you kidding me? If I faint on stage, it would be mortified. I would be very embarrassed. And he said, well, what would be so bad about that, really? It's like, well, what do you mean? I would be viewed as like a laughing stock. I would be viewed as a failure. What's so bad about that? It's like, oh my gosh, give me a break. And so finally I said, all right. I don't want to be viewed in that way because then people wouldn't like me anymore. And he said, now we're getting somewhere. It's an incredible question to ask yourself because if you're honest in the process, it begins to reveal some of those truths in your heart, which is exactly what Jesus is interested, isn't he? What is really going on in your heart and in your mind. So Jesus asks the second question, sort of a follow-up. Do you still have no faith? You say, well, wait a second. Jesus, you're turning this like potentially disastrous storm, life-altering situation into a question about faith? Yep. Because do you know how Jesus slept in the middle of that storm? Because he had no doubt in his mind whatsoever the truthfulness of this statement that God makes in Isaiah 41:10. It says, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Jesus never doubted that for a moment. And so he was able to trust. In taking a nap, Jesus was changing the question and demonstrating that posture of trust that whatever may happen to rock that boat, and it could get really, really rough, that his eyes would be closed to the storm and open to God. And he'd be able to say, without a shadow of a doubt, that I don't need to fear because God is with me. But before you and I can even begin to understand that kind of trust, we have to first change our question. You know, a couple years ago, my was then 5-year-old son, he loved to swim, but he was kind of scared of water. Always wore a floaty and goggles, and it was really cute. But he really wanted to jump off the diving board. And so he got to the edge of the diving board this one day, and he wanted to jump off, but he was scared. And so I could tell that his question that he was asking himself was, will I drown? If I jump, will I drown? That was what he was asking himself for the most part on that board. And you know what? We walk through life asking ourselves the same question. If I do this, will I drown? Are the costs too great? Are the stakes too high? But the truth is, standing on that board, Andrew is never going to change his mind and decide that, okay, now I got it figured out. I'm not going to drown. He needs to change the question. Will I trust? And so I get in there and I look at him and I say, buddy, jump to dad. I've got you. You can trust me. Now, at first, his response was, I'm not so sure. But he could, after I asked him enough, you can trust me, buddy. He could learn to say, yeah, I can. And he did. And he jumped. And I dropped him. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't drop him. So that's step one in the midst of a scary storm, is change the question from will I drown to will I trust. Step two is embrace the storm. Jesus was napping in the boat for the reason we just talked about. He was modeling faith and trust in God, but I think there was another purpose in that he knew that fear storms can oftentimes be good things. And so he was staying asleep because he was like, are the disciples going to get this? I'm going to give them an opportunity to get this, that this fear storm could be good. The deal is that our natural response to fear is to turn and run, isn't it? We love safety. We love comfort. But what is plastered through Scripture is not safety, is not comfort, is not mediocrity. It isn't the comfort of 160 channels and high-speed web access. What it is meeting God in the middle of the storm. Just look at a few together. Isaiah 41 is a great example. We looked at that one already. What it doesn't say is do not fear and run for your lives. Why are you in this sticky situation in the first place? It doesn't say that. It says do not fear, for I am with you. John 10:10, I have come that you may have life, a really, really safe, mediocre, comfortable. No, I have come that you might have life, and life abundant. And sometimes there's risk. Actually, a lot of the time there's risk involved in that kind of life. Isaiah 43:2. I love this one. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. Notice, it doesn't say if. We spend most of our lives, we really want that to be an if, and we try to avoid it at all costs. But God is saying, you can't avoid it. You're going to be in it. And when you're in it, I'm going to be there with you. And that is good news. Same thing with Psalm 23. Even though I walk through the valley, you guys, many of you know this psalm. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are what? With me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Man, sometimes I read that and I'm like, wait, God, why are we in the valley of the shadow of death in the first place? Come on. I think that's right where we should be. Because when we're in the places where we need him the most, those are the places that we get to meet him in the most significant and powerful ways. It says in John 10:10, the first part of it, we looked at the second part, but the first part says, the thief comes to steal and kill and destroy. Did you know that Satan's victory, that's the thief, by the way, is not in getting us to feel scared or react negatively to fear? It's in getting us to back down from living a life to the full because of that fear. Don't let the wind and the waves scare you, but let's dance in the rain a little bit and allow it to be the start of something greater, not the end of the line. So, number one, change the question. Number two, embrace the storm. And number three, always, always, always make sure you leave the shore with the captain in the boat. You know, for all the questioning and panicking and fearing that the disciples did out on that boat that we were privy to, because Mark recorded it in Mark chapter 4, those disciples nailed the most important thing. They left shore with the captain in the boat. You know, it's really interesting to me. A few chapters later in Mark, we see they're back in a boat again. And this time, Jesus isn't with them right away, but he walks out to them on the water. And the Gospel of Mark doesn't say this. There's a few interesting reasons why I think that. But the Gospel of Matthew does. And it says the part where Peter's in the boat and he's real jazzed up to go out. And he's like, I think I can go walk on water to Jesus. And he says, Jesus, if that's cool, tell me to come. And Jesus says, come on, Peter, you can do it. And so Peter gets out of the boat and he starts walking on the water. You will never guess what happens next. Wind, waves start blowing. And I know Jesus is thinking, all right, this is Peter's chance. Is he going to learn the lessons that we learn? Is he going to change the question? Is he going to embrace this storm? Matthew 14:30 says, but when Peter saw the wind, he was afraid, and he began to sink. Oh, Peter. Oh, Jim. Oh, Kevin. Oh, Bruce. But here's where Peter gets it right. And I pray that I will get it right, and I pray that you get it right too. He cries out, Lord, save me. I can't stress to you enough that one of the most significant narratives in these gospel accounts is that it's not if, but when life gets scary. It's not if, but when we fail, and when we fear, and when we fall. And when those things happen, it's in those moments when the grace of God says, I am with you. If Jesus is in your boat, he is on the journey with you. And even though there's louder things, and even though there's scarier things, that is the main thing. You know, you might be able to fight through fear without God in your life captaining your ship. I'm sure there are fancy ways to trick your brain into processing that scary situation differently. But think about it. All you would have accomplished is overcoming a fear. And that's assuming that it never comes back. You know, since my fear struck a little over 10 years ago, I've given many messages. And I got to be honest with you this morning. I'm reminded of this fear every single time I walk up on a stage to give a message. But you see, this message this morning is not in how to make your fears go away. This message is about how to meet the living God smack in the middle of your fears. And how to allow his grace to not only meet you in the middle, but to allow you to embark on a greater journey because of it. And so that's what I get to do every time I have the opportunity to stand up and do this. And it's always my prayer that God would give me the words to speak and be gracious enough to give me the strength to deliver them. And so the really cool thing about being up here in front of you this morning is that this is an amazing, and it's a scary, and it's a thrilling, and it's a fulfilling adventure with God all at the same time. And there's no place that I'd rather be. And it's my prayer that you can say the same thing when your fear, whatever it is in your life, when it strikes you. Maybe you're in this room and you've realized that you have a fear and it has paralyzed you, and you are not moving any further in your life because of it. Maybe today's the day to look fear in the eye, to cling to God and say, you know what? My captain is in the ship. What have I got to lose? Let's buckle up and rock and roll on this thing. You know, in order to process this a little further, I want to invite the team to come up, and there's a final song that we want to sing. I just invite you to just stay in your seats. Don't sing for this song, even if you know it, and just kind of let the words soak in a little bit. And as you sit, maybe you answer the first two questions that we posed. What does fear look like in your life? And number two, is it going to mark the end of the line for a goal or a dream that you have? Or for you this morning, is it going to mark the beginning to something greater?
When he told you you're not good enough, when he told you you're not right, when he told you you're not strong enough, put up a good fight, when he told you you're not worthy, when he told you you're not loved, when he told you you're not beautiful, that you'll never be enough. Fear is a liar. He will take your breath, stop you in your steps. And fear is a liar. He will rob your rest, steal your happiness, cast your fear in the fire. 'Cause fear, he is a liar. When he told you you were troubled, you'll forever be alone. When he told you you should run away, that you'll never find a home. When he told you you were dirty and that you should be ashamed. When he told you you could be the one, the grace would never change. Oh, fear is a liar. He will take your breath, stop you in your steps. And fear is a liar. He will rob your breath, steal your happiness, and cast your fear in the fire. 'Cause fear, he is a liar. Let your fire fall and cast down all my fears. Let your fire fall, your love is all I fear. Let your fire fall and cast down all my fears. Let your fire fall, your love is all I fear. Let your fire fall and cast down all my fears. Let your fire fall, your love is all I feel. Yeah. Let your fire fall and cast down all my fears. Let your fire fall, your love is all I feel. Fear is a liar. He will take your breath, steal you in your steps. And fear is a liar. He will rob your rest, steal your happiness, cast your fear in the fire. 'Cause fear, he is a liar. 'Cause fear, he is a liar.
Why don't we stand as we get ready to go out? You know, I love that passage, that story, and the disciples, as they're in this storm, as the waves are crashing, and they yell out, "Jesus, don't you care? Don't you care that we're drowning?" And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe that's how you feel right now. Maybe that's a question that you're asking right now in your life. And I hope so clearly you heard God speak this truth to you, that fear is a liar. Whatever fear is going on in your life, I hope as you walk out these doors, you walk out with that truth in your heart, and it changes the way that you live your life this week. You know, if you've got something in your life that you need prayer for, we would love the honor and privilege of praying with you before we go. We've got folks up front that have badges that say Pray Now on them, come up front. Don't miss that opportunity. And let me pray for us as we get ready to go. Lord, we just thank you for your love for us, your grace, Lord, your grace that's bigger than the storms, the waves that come crashing, the darkness, the questions, the doubts that happen in our lives, Lord. And we know that there's this truth that is bigger than all of that, and it's that fear is a liar. And so, Lord, I just pray that we walk out these doors and that we can live out of the truth of who you are, not the doubt that we have, not the fear that we have. Lord, we thank you for your love, for your grace. The grace that's over all, grace that's over our fears. And so, in Jesus' name, amen. Hey, I love you guys. Have a great week.